Great. Good morning. And we are here again together with this great crew, the eighth session of Churches Together in a Time of Crisis. Really great to be together. So thank you guys for making time this morning. Just a little recap. The vision of this whole time was seeing God raise up a city-centric body of Christ movement. So the whole church in each city, each of the 34 cities in Orange County, responding to the needs that God makes us aware of. And so, we've walked through this context of COVID-19, and the hope is that that can actually connect us more to each other and more to the needs in our cities. And that's been my prayer throughout this. And so thank you guys for being a part of this journey. I know that the leadership team of the network and those of us that have been invested in this process through our churches before, I know this is only a launching point. And so we're going to have some deeper dives into some of these topics that have come up. But just recap where we've been so far in the 8 sessions. So we talked about vision clarity. We talked about the fact that prayer needs to be the driving and unifying force of all these things. And actually, next week, Seek Week is something that we made you guys aware of. That's starting up, so we'll make sure we'll get you that link. The next thing we talked about was identifying leaders and praying that God would raise up leaders and how to give us structure and a framework for leaders to be participants in the work. And then we shifted into assessing the needs of the city and then addressing the needs of the city, and especially at a time of COVID. So we looked at like food insecurity, the need for blood drives and addressing families in need, employment and economic development issues. Then we brought in some great experts on homelessness and how do we really serve and be aware of our neighbors who find themselves homeless at this time. And then last week, Max and his crew, they were helping us understand what's happening with vulnerable youth and hearing from experts at Olive Crest and from the county. And then today, we kind of come full circle and we look at this topic of neighboring. And yes, neighboring is actually a verb. And I just wanted to launch a little poll in case you're kind of bored of hearing me kind of chat on here. But this concept of neighboring, I'm making some assumptions here for those of us that are on the call that we are familiar with this concept of loving God and loving neighbor, that they're inextricably linked, that we show our love for God by loving neighbor. And a classic passage of scripture on that is actually the Good Samaritan. And if you'd indulge me for a second, I'd love to just read that for us and maybe ask God's Spirit to show us which part of this verse where we find ourselves, even in this discussion. So quickly we can jump to tools and different ideas of who's doing what. And that can almost be an odd competition of who's doing it best. And I just want to root us in the text this morning and then go from there. Is that all right? I see one nod. So yes, we're going with it. So Luke 10, verses 25 through 37 says this: On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Jesus says, what is written in the law? He replied, how do you read it? And I love that. Jesus is like, hey, guess what? I know you're trying to test me. What do you say? What do you see in the text? So the teacher in the law answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. You have answered correctly, Jesus replied. Do this and you will live. But the teacher in the law wanted to justify himself. So he asked Jesus, who is my neighbor? In reply, Jesus said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going by on that same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too the Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, he passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I'll reimburse you for any extra expense you have. Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor? to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers. The expert in the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." And so for me, there's a few themes and threads that form a little framework here. Is the question that the expert asked, he actually wanted to justify himself. And for me, I see myself in that text. Often I want to justify my understanding of the law, my understanding of what we should do when we are neighbors. But Jesus flips it. And the question was, hey, who is my neighbor? How do I justify getting out of what the law requires? But Jesus actually flips that and said, and puts it in the positive, who acted as a neighbor. And so what I want us to focus on today, how do we as the church in each of the cities, the 34 cities in Orange County, spread across Orange County, how are we acting as neighbors? How can we be neighbors well? And so there are three sections, like looking at, want to see kind of the best or most helpful ideas on loving our neighbors, the best thing you've done or experienced in order to love our neighbors well, and then landing on some best tools to help us engage that and be equipped in that way. So just looking at the poll so far, you guys are kind of aligned with that. Like the 60% of us are saying we want to find out best ideas how we can neighbor. No one wants to share the best thing they've done as a neighbor, so that's interesting. And then most of us, 80%, want to find some tools to engage as the church in our city. And then a few of us want to find out about evangelism. Verses, okay, Luke 10, the one we just read. All right, seeing some action on that. James 1:27 is another. And this is pretty cool. You guys are obviously exceptional because, I can name at least 1 to 2 of my neighbors, none of you. You're all up in the 3+. 4 of us on this call know 8+ of our neighbors. And that's fantastic. That's so good. I love that. Okay, I'm going to leave that open for just like a couple more minutes, but would really love to shift into a little discussion here if we could. So best ideas on loving our neighbors. So three questions. What needs are you seeing these days in your neighborhoods? How are you seeing your church show up in those needs? And then what ways might there be for you to invite in other churches in your city into some of the things that you're doing? So think about that. I'll pop that into the chat function, those questions. And then if you've got something that's bubbling up, feel free to unmute and throw it out there for the whole group. So again, the 3 questions. What needs are you seeing in your neighborhood? How are you responding? And then are there ways for the church to jump in?
One new need I heard about today, I was talking to somebody from the Santa Ana School District, and they said that there's a real need in retirement homes for people to write cards and encouraging letters, just even if you don't know the people. And so, that was something I was looking at this morning.
Yeah, and Jeff, I know you and Orange Lutheran, you guys have been kind of engaging in that. You want to share a little bit of what you're finding from that?
Sure. So there's a ministry partner that we have, Orange County Amazing Grace Ministries, and they are connected to dozens of skilled nursing homes and assisted living communities all across our region. And they sort of came to us and said, look, older adults are arguably the most isolated population in America already. And with the onset of COVID-19, now they've become even more isolated, and a lot of skilled nursing homes are not even allowing their residents to leave their rooms. So they cannot even go to the community room in their own facilities. And a lot of the enrichment programming for them has been canceled. And so they're literally just in their rooms all day long. And this partner said, we can write them encouragement notes. And I said, well, how many would you like us to do? And she said, well, ideally 8,000. So I designed this initiative to try to go broadly, and I've sent it around a little bit. I haven't done a great job of marketing. It's not my strength, but it really has not taken off. And I think that's unfortunate, but I'm still prayerful and hopeful that it can go wide, because it's a safe thing to do. It's very strategic. It's pretty easy. And I think it could bring just a lot of joy and comfort. And the cool thing about this initiative is that if you request through me or through Orange County Amazing Grace Ministries that your notes all go to the same, like maybe from your church or from a administrator church, if you request the notes all go to the same nursing home, when the pandemic passes, you guys can actually visit the nursing home and do like a follow-up. And they'll offer, Orange County Amazing Grace Ministries offers training, because some nursing homes can be sort of gritty or scary for people that aren't used to that population. But other nursing homes are more accessible and softer place for people to enter into. And the cool thing about this as well is that we have our full agency, both in the note writing and in our visitation. We can be 100% explicitly Christian, because patients or residents have rights to have religious programming. And the nursing home isn't going to say only Christians allowed. That would be not appropriate. But we can go in and write Christian notes with Bible verses and artwork, and we can also visit later on. So I'll send that link around. And if you guys know of churches, of men's groups and women's ministries inside your churches that want to participate, that would be amazing. And I just was on a call yesterday with Heather from OC, Amazing Grace Ministries, and she and I were both expressing a little bit of discouragement, not heavy discouragement, but just like, wow, this would be such a cool thing if it could catch on. So I'm going to send that. Thanks, guys, for listening.
Yeah, Jeff, it's awesome, man. And already, like Jen Halliburton, she and her husband are invested in Rock Harbor Mission Viejo. They're kind of founding pastors of that campus there, and their family's team wants to jump in on that. So yeah, send that link around, and that'd be great. You can copy that from the chat directly, or I can send a follow-up email as well for the
thanks.
crew.
And then one last thing, if you would like to take off my name and Orange Lutheran's name and just put your own branding or own name in there, that's perfectly fine. I take no ownership over this initiative. I just would love for these notes to get out.
Yeah, love that, man. So good. Well, and it feels like, just walking around neighborhoods, we're seeing chalk art everywhere. We're seeing, signs go up in windows, but it'd be great to keep equipping the people to respond well. So thanks, Jeff. Really appreciate that.
Can I jump in for just a sec?
Of course.
Jeff, is there a possibility for worship services to be brought to them, in a sense that I know that I used to work at Friends as a pre-K teacher, and we would bring in the seniors into the preschool, and the seniors absolutely loved worshiping. I'm wondering if there is a way where maybe cross-polling, and I'm just throwing some stuff out here. I have to go back and talk with our team, but is there a way to maybe video some worship services or send them something over? Do they have access that we could send that to them?
Yes. So obviously when the pandemic is over, you can do in-person chapels inside the nursing care homes. That's completely allowed. And that's even welcomed. But right now, are you asking about right now?
Yeah, I'm wondering about right now if there's some way we can stream something over to them or send them recorded things that they can plug into if they wanted to.
Yes, well, I do know that technology is limited inside of the rooms. It's not like they each have a TV. I mean, some places might, but OC Amazing Grace Ministries did ask me to compile like 30-second videos of just encouragement to both the staff and the residents at these nursing care facilities. So that's a possibility if you just have people record 30-second videos, just introducing themselves and telling them where you live and maybe a hobby or two and how much you're praying for them and expressing how difficult of a time this is, but just lifting their spirit and saying that you hope to see them one day or something like that. I think that's a possibility. I don't know about streaming like a 45-minute like service into the rooms. I don't know about that. I'd have to find out about that.
Videos is great. The 30 seconds, that's awesome. That's something that we're actually doing on Instagram for our young adults and stuff. So that could be something we could probably try to integrate. So, okay, cool. Awesome.
There's also opportunity for ministry to the staff as well. If you feel led to bring them a meal, if you feel led to just write them a thank you card or anything like that, because they've been working really hard under circumstances that they're not accustomed to. And so like in a typical nursing home, there'll be administrators, there'll be a doctor or two, be all different kinds of nurses who are very intimate with their clients. And there's maybe some social workers. So there's a broad range of people that you could be invested in during this time.
Are you working with a specific list of nursing homes, or can you tag into a nursing home that's close to your church so that you can be a community partner with them?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And that's where I think, I don't know about, maybe even most of us here should acknowledge that we're not the experts in this field. And so that's where we lean heavily on our ministry partners who are the experts. And my contact over at OC Amazing Grace Ministries has you earmark or somehow label all the notes that you're sending in as Orange Lutheran. She said she can direct them to a facility that's close by. So like if your church wants to participate and you just kind of collect the notes and bundle them up and say, these are all from our church, she can direct them to a nursing home that's close to the church or that's centrally located for your people. And she might even be able to choose one that's appropriate at an appropriate level for your church.
Yep, that's great.
My church, Presbyterian Church of the Masters in Mission Viejo, we are across the street from Sunrise Assisted Living facility, and our church has adopted that facility a few years ago. So we write notes, we play bingo over there, we do arts and crafts, and so we've kind of invested in them. And if we have something in our church on aging ministries, they come over and will speak at our church also. So it's been a really good partnership. We even do what's called music together. So we take sometimes the little kids from our church will go over there to sing, and the youth ministry. So it's been a really good partnership.
It's great
for our church.
That's so good. I love hearing this is not only an at-risk population in the time of COVID, but oftentimes neglected and forgotten. And so I love hearing the ways that you guys are engaging, and that it makes it challenging in this time. Like, when can we show up? When can we not? And so to have those that can help us navigate those things. Thanks for offering that, friends. It's so good. I know, so Steve, I know there's some things that you've been invested in as well in terms of the Good Neighbor kind of connecting points in a few cities in Orange County, and they've got a great way of engaging. And then also your time with Campus Crusade with Cru over the years, and your network to a whole group where there are great new tools for evangelism in the midst of all of this. And so I just wanted to give you a little minute to share what you've been learning lately with the Cru here, and see if that could spark some ideas as well. So Steve, jump in there.
Well, maybe I'll start backwards first. One of the things is over the years, it's like people have changed, and how we share our faith has changed. Even like how we're meeting now is changing. We're doing Zoom, and there's just a lot of interconnectivity, and I guess the older ones of us are being forced into the younger culture. And one of the things that we're getting ready to do, we haven't set uh, we haven't set a schedule for it yet, but we're going to do a set of evangelism training that's really applicable to today, and I think applicable to this online interconnectivity. And so we're going to do like a 4-week thing where it would be once a week. And we would look at how to ask good questions, just to find out about people, to listen, and to to open up things for more conversations. We'll look at simple ways of presenting the gospel. We'll look at dealing with barriers that people today face, and all of this is sort of like woven into here's like as I'm connected to different cities, here's like things that seem to be really working as far as just an enjoyable way for people to communicate their faith, or to get answers online, or how do you follow up somebody through email or through whatever. So that's one thing that we're doing, is trying to up our game a little bit in a new world. The other thing is we have a Good Neighbor ministry focused on particular neighborhoods, and thinking through, like even like one of our ministries recently during Palm Sunday, they knew people weren't going to get out for Easter, and what they did is they put together a box that had not only food in this underserved neighborhood, but it had the Easter egg card. They did personal cards for each one of the families and the 80 families in that neighborhood. And they did the whole thing, the mask, the keeping 6 feet away, wearing gloves, and all of that. And I think they had maybe like 26 people come to know the Lord, and I think it was like 16 people rededicated their life to Christ. And that's what we're starting to notice, that people are really stressed out, and people are really feeling a lot of pressure. So it's like trying to think of creative ways of how how can you not only get into the community, but how you can follow up with them.
Yeah, so great. Well, and I know oftentimes when it comes to mission conversations, we can lose one side of this equation of incarnation. So John 1:14 has always been a helpful framework for how to engage well. So John 1:14, it said, Jesus, he showed up, the Word showed up, the Word took on flesh and dwelt among us. So the Message translation is great, like got moved into the neighborhood. So the Word took on flesh and dwelt among us. So that's like this continuum, that's intention. So incarnation is the embodiment of all the law, all of the law of the prophets, by loving our neighbors. So the Word taking on flesh is a critical component. So sometimes in today's world, we can go to one side of that continuum. We can just, we got to give them the 4 spiritual laws, or, we can dwell heavily on the doctrine or the Word or the scriptures, and then we forget the love part or the flesh part, right? And then some of us go just to that. Well, it doesn't matter what I say, it's just what I do. And so that's just helpful. Thanks, Steve. Like we need to be reminding one another and keep learning to engage that tension and allow Jesus to be incarnated through whatever we're doing, right? And in the way that we embody it. So critical. And I know there are a lot of tools in that. I love how you were saying, listening. So, we in that poll, we're going to switch into discussing some of the tools that are happening, and then open it up for a little more discussion around that. But are any of you guys familiar with CCDA, Christian Community Development Association? Yeah, so it's been around for a long time, kind of grew out of the work of John Perkins, Dr. John Perkins down in the South in Mississippi. And it's expanded into a nationwide network of Christian community development practitioners. So there are principles that kind of integrate all these things that we're talking about. And one of them is actually determining a geography to where you're going to care for and cultivate where God has placed you. Like he's put you there for a reason. So paying attention to how you embody the good news, embody the gospel of Jesus in that area. And so ccda.org is a great tool, great resource for that. That was in the poll that I'm just sharing some of those results on there. So ccda.org is a great tool. Another one that I know Ian and the Trellis Network has been pursuing and getting is actually understanding what is happening and who is actually in each of our neighborhoods. So blesseveryhome.com is a great online tool, and it maps it all out. So you get your login and you can kind of track your through their framework. They talk about prayer, care, and share. So this idea of, hey, well, who actually is in my neighborhood? Who's actually praying for those in my neighborhood? And again, prayer is that seedbed for the life that can happen. And opening doors, as God's Spirit opens doors for you to express specific care to those neighbors. And then as you're caring, you're able to share the whole reason behind it all. So that's been a helpful tool for a lot of people right now. And then we've talked about this a couple times too on some of these calls, is a care portal. So originally it developed as a tool for kind of foster adoption and caring for the vulnerable youth. And in the season of COVID, they've opened that up for people to be able to post needs geographically based, and that to be communicated to member churches in that area to be able to respond to some of those needs. So careportal.org is another one that I give. Love Our Cities. That's kind of a movement. I know. Actually, if you don't mind, Dana, if you're able to or you want to, can I put you on the spot to share a little bit about? Because I know Love Costa Mesa is part of it. There's some other cities in Orange County that have jumped in, but Dana, could you just share a little bit if I could indulge myself by putting you on the spot?
Sure, no problem. So Dana Peterson from Christ Lutheran in Costa Mesa, close partners with Trellis. Some of you may be familiar. And so a lot of the collaboration we've been doing has been great, not only with our churches, but our businesses and with our local government. And so Love Costa Mesa really is kind of that partnership coming to a great organized fruition. And so there's projects that can get posted pretty much by anyone during the year. And so a lot of this started with a Love Costa Mesa Serve Day, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, whether that's Placentia, Anaheim, you name it. I know there's so many cities doing that, but it's been a great way, especially with the IKEA food distribution that started up, to be able to mobilize not only Christians to serve, but to expand that as well. So if you haven't taken a look yet, you can check out Love Costa Mesa or the loveourcities.org. And it's been an easy way for us even to post projects when we're looking for volunteers to engage beyond something we want to do to include other churches. And again, that collaboration piece has been so refreshing to see the church at large working together, not feeling like we're our own island trying to do something or where pride can creep in, but really to work together and link arms. And we've seen great response and impact just through people being able to see the church working together rather than competing. And that's been awesome. So you can check out that and how it works. It's pretty easy, and you can kind of define those needs as you want to for your own city.
That's great. So good. Thanks, Dana. Appreciate that. I know I'm just scanning chat here, and Jeff, yeah, love that. Your native friends are saying that the word became flesh and moved to the res. That's, yeah, man. I think there are some people that I've learned from along the way, and one of the things we're talking about in terms of posture and listening, it's just so critical. There's a friend of mine, his name's Nate Ledbetter. He's He's served in multiple cities, pastored in multiple cities in Chicago and Grand Rapids and in Atlanta. And he's now in actually outside of Charlotte with a church called Warehouse 242. And he's written a book called Thriving City Blocks. And hopefully I'm trying to organize a more in-depth conversation and maybe get to interview him or give him a chance to share a bit more. But I'll send around the link to his website. But I was reading a post that he put on there, and he brought up the fact that in these seasons, particularly white evangelical churches, we can kind of go to seats of power. So whether government or city officials, or we tend to climb that ladder and talk about what's needed. And he was just saying that oftentimes it takes listening to those on the fringes, those maybe at the reservation, those who are maybe undocumented, and really listening to, hey, what are the needs on the outskirts of where we normally pay attention. And I read that, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. I think that's something that maybe we can consider. And it's not an either or strategy, right? It's a both and. It's God cares about the whole city, and that includes all the people that are there. But oftentimes it's those that are ignored or on the underside of power that don't actually get to share or aren't heard as much. So amplifying their voice in this discussion is a critical piece. And I know there's some churches that are coming together right now in Costa Mesa, and they created a fund for those that don't have access to, and for whatever reason. I was talking to a friend just yesterday. He falls in this weird spot where his business doesn't qualify for any of the PPP funding. He doesn't qualify for the loan, that loan for his business. He didn't get the personal stimulus check either, because he didn't qualify for that. And so there are those in our midst, whether in business and just kind of fall in this weird space, or undocumented folks that are in our cities that don't have access to this. And so some churches came together and they seeded this fund in order to meet some of those needs. So think of it, maybe this is my paraphrase, it's like a city-based benevolence fund, right? So they've got members from each of the participating churches who are sitting on that kind of approval board. And I love that there's some creative ideas out there of how we're meeting the needs and showing up and showing God's love. And so wanted to open it up to you guys. So what other kind of creative solutions are you seeing, or that you're participating with, or that you're curious about? But I'll just open that up. Feel free to unmute yourself, and we'll just chat a little bit, and then we'll close here in about 8 minutes or so.
Our church has a program called Bless Our Schools. And I've been very amazed. I didn't grow up in the US. And sometimes when I go to the local, even Mission Viejo schools, I'm really surprised at the, things that those schools lack. So our church partnered with a school called Viejo Elementary School, and they're doing homework help there, but they realized that some of their facilities weren't very good. So they went in and did like some renovations and stuff. And actually through it, some of the parents were just, I think, so surprised that we were working in the school that it had actually brought some people, a few people to our church just from that gesture. But I think Mission Viejo schools, for us who live locally here, really need some work. So I think all over Orange County, that if you go to the schools, if you haven't been in a school and you don't have younger children, that I was shocked, and especially with the huge class sizes, volunteering and things like that, if people can get their churches to be involved in that, I think it's really helpful. When my son was at a school down here in Mission Viejo, in his 5th grade, we couldn't get anybody to volunteer. And so I was volunteering like 4 days a week, during a particular hour. And I was really surprised because there were a lot of people who were stay at home who could do it, but they weren't doing it. So, yeah.
Yeah, schools are such a critical connecting point to all their collection of all the needs represented in our community. So great point today. Thank you Thanks for that. What else? Anybody else been engaging in or exploring, especially in the season of COVID, ways to address some of the needs? I know a lot of churches, they've got a need help and give help kind of splash page. What are you guys up to?
So I had an idea, and it's quite modest, but I think, again, it could be safe and effective. And that is just to write introduction and encouragement notes to the neighbors specifically that you don't know. And just to say, this is a tough time for everybody, and just know that I'm glad to be your neighbor, and I live here, and this is my name, and we haven't met yet. But if churches could maybe make a PDF of a card like that and send it around, and just encourage their people to fill it out and to distribute it across their neighborhood. Or you can even just order just blank cards or get some at Target and just give it out to 5-6 neighbors you don't know. I think that would be a really good relational connection point, and needs will emerge over time. I think it's a mistake to be presumptuous and just say, oh, you must need, just judging by the way you look or something like that, you must need this. I think that's quite paternalistic, and that kind of colonialistic model is no longer appropriate, never was appropriate. So I think that's just one great idea, and that's what I've been encouraging some of my people to do. And then another idea, just a little bit more risky, is has to do with these hotels and motels that are kind of longer stay. You can see them a lot in the city of Anaheim and up and down Beach Boulevard. And I have found that if you find the right management, they're completely open to you guys coming in on a Saturday and just setting up a share table or doing things like that. And I know OC United had a relationship with the motel for quite some time. And that's just another good idea if some church people want to just bring some supplies and set up a table and then leave, and then come back in the evening and clear out the table. That's another great way to minister to a population that is in transition.
You're muted, Andrew. You're muted.
You know, thank you. This is why it requires a community. You'd think after 8 of these, I would know how to do this, right?
I thought you were talking to yourself.
Well, that happens too. Just being honest. Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate you suggesting those ideas. I know there is a church here in our area that gave a form letter to a lot of their people, and that's kind of what they did. Just great way is kind of moving through that process, right? I know there's a book called The Art of Neighboring, and it kind of maps some of that out. I see a couple of you guys nodding like you've read it. So I think again, it's not for lack of tools that we have. It's just for lack of maybe connection and gaining a little momentum in terms of actually practicing this stuff. So again, going back to the anchoring text for us, like how often do I want to just justify the stuff that I do? I love seeing that a lot of you guys already know your neighbors, which is fantastic. I did want to add in one thing, especially in this season. It's that really, and some of us have been talking about this along the way. I think, Jeff, you brought this up in other discussions, but it's this process from relief to development, or in community development work, they talk about betterment to empowerment. And so Bob Lepton is someone, he wrote Toxic Charity. He's been in the trenches in urban environments, doing cross-cultural and cross, trying to connect and really move people along that from betterment to empowerment. So yes, going to motels, establishing a relationship, kind of getting people what they need, that's a betterment kind of mindset, the give a fish mindset. And then the empowerment part takes time. So it's like 10, 15-year process to see collective empowerment. And so I know there are a lot of places. So the Lupton Center and FCS Ministries, they're down in Atlanta. They've done a lot of work in this way. CCDA is another great resource for that. There are some local Christian community development corporations that are doing some good work. I know Solidarity up in Fullerton is doing awesome work on that. You know, there's just, and actually Solidarity, they started up something called El Camino, which is a way to connect with the undocumented neighbors that we have and actually give them solid legal advice in not only the immigration process, but especially now in the time of COVID, figuring out how to access some of those resources. But yeah, so what else do you have? Maybe a couple more minutes, and then I'll stop the recording and we can hang out for the after party for a little while and chat. Any other tools? Go ahead.
I'd love to share I know I'm not in your neighborhood. Jamie and I are up in the South Bay, but in the beginning when we started this, you know, a few weeks ago, we were talking about connecting to our city of Lomita, and that's just kind of been an open door. And before COVID hit, so was the military in our community, and we've never been able to have a touch point with, it used to be Army, now Air Force at Fort MacArthur. So we had that in December, and then COVID hit, you know, coming into the first of the year and all. But part of a pastor's group here in Lomita with Lomita pastors, but because of building these relationships, that has opened the doors to care for the widows and more the orphans in the city of Lomita, and so much with the elderly. And it's so cool because I'm in a church that, or Jamie and I are in a church that it's about us versus this is like you guys, it's about all of us doing it together. So it's been really fun to see the opportunities come up where we can serve together. And then we were able to support the, on the Mercy Ship is right in our port, like 10 minutes from me. And they started getting affected with COVID, the crew did. So they took them off and put them in some local hotels. And so our church, because that's how we think, it's our church, you know, we just did this big drive and made them these gift packets and all. But in that connected us down to San Diego with the military there. And then that opened the door even more so with our Air Force base here. So now we're creating space for churches to come together to provide food because they are in need of food. They're in that disparity with food too, of insecurity here locally. So we're going to be able to create space for churches that come together and serve 500 families of just donations and all of that. But it's pretty cool to be on this with all of you, see so much of what you're doing in Orange County, desiring that so much for up here in the South Bay. And the leaders that I'm with, we're going, okay, let's just start Lomita pastors. We can't think all South Bay like they're doing in Orange County because they've been doing this a long time, but let's just stay focused here. But it's just opened great opportunities. So I just want to say thank you. And one more thing. We have ministries already with convalescent home and housing, retirement homes. So what we did is we used to teach Bible and chapels in there already. So we have created Zoom calls with them and worked with the activities directors. So especially in our convalescent homes, they are still being able to hear the people that would come and sing with them every week. They're still being able to be connected. And our youth this week have been, Olive Student Ministries has been creating those encouragement cards, Jeff, like you were talking about. And again, thinking how we think from just our own church, how much more fun this is going to be from this point forward to get all churches involved in this. So thank you, you guys. I really appreciate all of you and your wisdom and your love for God and people. I'm off.
Oh, great. Thanks, Marcia. Thanks for what you guys are up to, and thanks for your encouragement in that and just participating, right? Because that's what it is. It doesn't happen unless we show up and try to connect it. I love what you're saying there of broadening our understanding of our church, right? Like moving from the me to we, like, hey, what is God's church up to, and how can we start seeing what we're doing as a way to engage the broader church in that as well? And that's the heart right here. So just a couple of closing comments, and then we'll keep the channel open and we can dialogue in the after party. So next, what next? This finishes in our 8 sessions that we've committed to through April, but I would invite you and encourage you to really participate in Seek Week this next week. So next week, May 4th through 8th, is Seek Week. So churches, and we're focusing on city by city each day. And then it's culminating into the National Day of Prayer. And it's heavy on many leaders that I speak with, and I know you probably feel this as well. Just really seeking God's face together, lifting up the name of Jesus in our neighborhoods, in the ways that only God can move to open up opportunities to be the church. So join us in prayer, seekweek.org. Let's jump in on that. If your church isn't signed up, or even if you just want to do it yourself, let's do it. If I can help in any way, feel free to reach out. Secondly, we're gonna revisit some of these topics in months to come. So check your inbox. Check maybe pass along some of the links to the YouTubes that we've recorded of these, if some people weren't able to participate. And there's been some really great content along the way, and some people that are doing some awesome stuff to show God's love. So it'd be great to keep equipping God's people in that. So we're going to do some deep dives into some specific topics in the future. Economic development, probably another round of neighboring, which would be great. I think it'd be great to see what other ideas you guys might have in terms of what's most helpful for you to do a deep dive on. And that brings us to that. Yeah, keep us posted. We've got the network has a Facebook group, and that's been a primary way for us to kind of share resources, share what's happening, stay in contact together. So if you're not in that, make sure you reach out to me, and we'll get you in there. But that would be a great way to end up. As we close here, would love it, Skip, if you could just give a little closing word and prayer, and then I'll stop the recording.
Thank you, Andrew. And thanks, everybody. So great to see so many of you consistently throughout this season. We are working behind the scenes to continue to try and gather resources and tools to help you take steps towards this vision of connecting with other churches and engaging your city. So we'll continue that effort. Stay tuned for announcements on future calls and other things. We hopefully won't pester you too much, but want to intentionally up our communication game and continue to make you aware of things that we discover. And so it'll be a fun ongoing journey. This is, like Andrew said at the beginning, this is sort of just phase one, and there's a lot more to come. And we don't clearly see the road ahead, but the Lord's revealing it step by step. So we trust Him for that. So Lord, thanks so much for giving us the opportunity to engage together around this crisis. It is a crisis, it continues to be. It's a crisis for each of us, a crisis for our communities and our cities. And in the midst of crisis, when people are hurting and struggling, we don't want to be people who sit on the sidelines and do nothing. We want to be people who dig in deep around the areas of pain and provide real practical help, Lord Jesus, as you showed us by example, but also not just provide food and water, but also provide hope and love and connection to you for eternity. So would you continue to energize us, strengthen us, and give us both the vision and also the resources and relational connectivity to continue to move forward across our cities, we pray in your name. Amen.
Amen. All right. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to stop the recording, and then we can hang if you want to. Peace.
Sadly, I have to jump off for another call, but thanks so much for leading this charge, Andrew. Appreciate you.
Pleasure. Thanks, friends.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.